Today's video is all about one of my favorite things to do as a social media manager, and this is planning your Instagram feed using Canva. I do this for my own personal Instagram and also for my clients. Before I dive into sharing what it looks like on Canva, I'm going to screen share, like actually doing an Instagram layout. I want to talk about why it's important to plan your Instagram feed. There's a lot of people, a lot of Instagram gurus out there in 2023 who will say Instagram is all about authenticity now and you shouldn't be planning like a heavily curated feed. And I agree with this to a certain extent, but as a business owner, I think it's very important to still have a professional and really visually interesting Instagram feed. And I'm going to talk about some techniques in this video on how I plan ahead with my content but still allow space for creativity and doing more spontaneous videos, because I do think, you know, Reels have changed the algorithm in that sense. We can't just plan out our content for 30 days in advance and then schedule it and disappear. You want to make sure you're aware with, you know, trending audios, what people are really posting about in that sort of week on Instagram. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I just wanted to get it off my chest first that I do think it's still really important to be planning ahead with your Instagram content and making your page look visually beautiful and leaving that good impression for your business for new customers that find you on Instagram. So let's get into the good stuff. How I create my Instagram feed on Canva. I made this template from scratch. It's something that I used to do in Photoshop, and then I moved over to Canva because I love Canva so much. It's so much easier. And if you're not on Canva and you're a social media manager or you want to be, it's like the best tool that I can recommend to you getting started. And the idea is to basically recreate your Instagram grid, and I use basically the frames from the graphics section, from the elements section on Canva, and I line up all of the squares just like how you see them in Instagram. I don't bother putting my entire bio and profile picture and highlights in there. It's purely the layout of the images. And the reason I plan this in advance is so I don't get clusters of images that look really similar in one corner of my grid, because it makes it look a little bit messy. Now, I do actually sell this template in my social media manager template bundle, but you can totally make this yourself. It's why I'm making this video. I do think it's something you can really easily do, but my management template, that also comes with a whole bunch of things like sales PDFs and services guides and onboarding documents, and the Canva grid template is kind of just like another little bonus in there. The reason I structure it so it's got the Canva templated squares is that I can really just drag and drop images and play around with my layout in a really user-friendly and speedy way. And there's lots of other apps that you can kind of do a similar thing with, but for me as a social media manager, I really liked Canva because I can have separate files for all of my different clients and for myself, for my own, you know, projects. Like I'll make a brand new Canva grid layout for if I'm doing a specific course launch, so I can come back and recycle some of that material if I go to relaunch one of my courses. And I just like having separate files for every client. And often with some social media management apps or grid apps, they only let you do one Instagram account at a time, or at least one Instagram account for free, which I'm not about. I feel like I should have more to say about this, but it really is that easy of just creating your squares on Canva. And I'll pop the exact dimensions of the document that I use in the description box so that you can go create your own, because it was a little bit of fiddling backwards and forth for me, like lining up all the squares and doing the math so that all the squares fitted and there wasn't weird gaps and stuff like that. So now that we know how to use Canva, I want to talk a little bit more about a few different techniques for laying out the perfect Instagram grid. And there's a couple of different patterns people will see, and you might now observe, now that you're learning about layouts on Instagram, you're going to start to notice them. But a really common one is to do columns. So you'll have columns in your Instagram profile, and everything in this column might be a selfie, everything in that column might be a graphic, and then everything in that column might be a reel or a video. And then of course you can do rows, which is essentially the same, but it's going along horizontally. But my personal favorite pattern is kind of called like the checkerboard. And this is where every second post kind of alternates. And this is how you get an Instagram feed that looks visually beautiful, but not overly heavily curated, if that makes sense. So I alternate between either a solid colored background image or a graphic. So it kind of mixes between like a photo with a white background, a photo with a pink background, a photo with a white background, a graphic with a pink background, and it kind of alternates every second post. I will say I'm not perfect. Sometimes I do step outside of this checkerboard pattern. If you scroll through my Instagram, you know, I might have events that pop up, or I might film a certain trending audio and I'm like, this doesn't quite work with my checkerboard pattern, but that's okay. And that's where I think it's important to have some flexibility with planning your Instagram feed. Don't be afraid to break your pattern every now and then if it's about doing a really good post. And I think that's the clear difference between how Instagram used to be in maybe 2016 to how it is now. There is a little bit more fluidity, there is a bit more casualness with the content and how your profile looks. But overall, this checkerboard pattern is my favorite because I do think it nails that balance of being authentic and natural and casual, and it just looks really effortless, like you're not really trying, but it's on closer inspection that you start to see the pattern. One of my big tips here is to make sure you're using consistent colors and branding. And this doesn't necessarily mean just your graphics, it's also about your photos. If you look at my grid, you'll notice that I might have a photo with a white background or a green background. You know, I might be outside, there might be some trees, but then I'll have a pink top on. And then the next post might have a graphic with pink text in it. So I have these consistent pinkish color palettes that run throughout my Instagram feed, which again, give it that cohesive look. Sometimes when I'm planning out my Instagram feed, I will just put like a blank pink square, and that will tell me like I need to do a piece of content where I'm either wearing pink or some kind of pink graphic. And I like to do that because it gives me a little bit of flexibility. Like I said in the beginning of this video, if there's a trending audio that pops up, if I have a question that comes through my DMs and I'm like, oh, I need to turn this into an Instagram post, or if there's some breaking algorithm news or something like that, I have like a blank square where I can fill that in. And I really like this approach to using Instagram these days because it allows you to jump on those trends. It allows it to be a little bit more spontaneous, which is also really fun if you're a creative person and you do, you know, like creating every week, not just creating once a month and doing everything in bulk. So that's a little hack that I've been using recently, and I get a lot of questions from people being like, you can't just plan all your stuff, you can't batch record, that doesn't work on Instagram. And for me, it's about a balance of doing both. So that is going to be the end of today's video. It's short and sweet, but I hope this has given you some interesting insights into how I sort of run Instagram for myself and for my clients. And I just love Canva. Let me know if you want any more videos about Canva, because I feel like I could talk about it all day. And if you have any more questions or video suggestions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye guys!